Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm going to bring this down. We're just letting in a few more people. Okay. Hi, everybody. Hope you are doing well. It's so great to have you here with us today. Welcome to this month's Feed Your Mind series program, which are virtual lunch and learns on various topics with various experts in the well-being community. And today we're talking about understanding healthy relationships. I'm Wendy Singer, Executive Director for No Shame on You. And on behalf of our Board of Directors, staff, and volunteers, I warmly welcome you to today's program. No Shame on You, if it's your first time, is dedicated to reshaping attitudes about mental health, elevating conversations, and disarming stigma. We support young people as well as those who support them with tools to understand, talk about, and respond to mental health challenges. We fulfill our mission with comprehensive community outreach programs, customized workshops, teen boards, free resources, and a robust online presence on various social media channels, including Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and Instagram. So please follow us. We partner with organizations throughout the Chicagoland area and across the country and are recognized for our inclusive content, consistent and responsive programming for people of all backgrounds. I want to express gratitude for our sponsors displayed on the pre-roll slideshow. And before I introduce our speakers today, we will hold a Q&A at the end of the program. Please submit your questions directly to me, Wendy Singer, who is on the list. And we will address as many questions as time permits. And now it is time to introduce today's speakers. They come from a wonderful organization that means a lot to our community, SHALVA. First, I will start with Jordan Scorpio, is SHALVA's Director of Community Education. Jordan created and launched SHALVA's cornerstone healthy relationship program called 7 Circles in January of 2022. Today, Jordan guides SHALVA's 5-person community education team to reach all pockets of the community with domestic violence, with domestic abuse education, in a culturally sensitive manner. In 2022, Jordan was recognized by JUF Chicago as a 36 under 36 honoree and winner of the Samuel A. Goldsmith Young Professional Award. We're so lucky to have her. Also today, we have Zoe Friedland. She's a therapist and educator for SHALVA. She loves creating opportunities and connection in both clinical and community spaces, especially when she gets the chance to incorporate an artistic practice. She began her career as a youth educator with a focus on consent and healthy relationship programming. Zoe holds a BFA with a BFA, a Bachelor's in Fine Arts with an emphasis on art education from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. She also has her master's degree from the Jane Addams School of Social Work at University of Illinois, Chicago, during which time she has worked as a art therapist and educator with young people on the far south side of Chicago. She has extensive experience working with children and adults and young adults of all backgrounds. So welcome, Jordan. Take it away.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here with you all. This is really wonderful. Zoe and I are excited to be here and share a little bit in conversation with you today about thinking about healthy, unhealthy, abusive relationships, especially how it relates to engaging with the young people in our lives and wanting to make sure they are in healthy, loving relationships and how to support them if they're not. So as the Director of Community Education today, I'll be walking us through a little bit of a presentation. Like Wendy said, please submit questions throughout. I'm happy to be interrupted. I could talk forever about this topic, as weird as that might be, but I love questions. Please interrupt me. There also might be 2 points where I'm going to ask you a question if you want to use the chat or come off of Zoom, just a little icebreaker and another question to think about. So be ready for that. Um, And my colleague Zoe is here to help answer questions and fill in the gaps. And also, if you have especially more specific kind of therapeutically focused questions about this topic, we will definitely go through them. So if you have questions kind of about the content as we're going through it, please submit them to Wendy. If you have questions at the end that you're coming here with, that you want advice from our wonderful therapist Zoe, please submit those as well, and we'll get to those at the end. Sound good? Wonderful. Um, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you're not just awkwardly staring at my face this whole time. So give me 1 second here and we'll get started. So before I dive into anything, I just want to say, the work that SHALVA does is really grounded in supporting survivors of domestic abuse. That is a tough topic. We're going to talk about kind of the range of relationships, like I said, the healthy stuff as well today. But just check in with yourself if anything feels upsetting for you and you need to step away. No offense taken. Take care of yourself, and know ultimately, if you do end up today with a question about a relationship in your life, yours or somebody else's, and you're wondering about next steps, you can always visit our website, shalvacares.org, or give us a call on our helpline. So please take care of yourself and check in with yourself. So SHALVA's mission, just briefly, is to offer deep Jewish cultural competency and expertise in domestic abuse to support our diverse community. So we have free therapeutic services for people who are experiencing or healing from an abusive relationship. Our therapists, Zoe included, are really grounded in understanding the Jewish community, the Jewish culture, the Jewish traditions, and that's really the value add, that cultural competency that we offer uniquely at SHALVA. We also, our community education, as you can imagine, really ranges. We do the heavier stuff about abusive relationships. We do a lot of professional trainings and things like that. But we really feel strongly that the more we can talk about healthy relationships and lift up what that looks like, the better those healthy relationships get over time, and the easier it is to identify what's not okay as well. So we really offer the range of programming, as well as support to survivors of abusive relationships. And we're coming to our 40th anniversary next year. So we've been around for a long time, and unfortunately probably will always be needed.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. We're excited for that. So, like I said, I have a little icebreaker question for you all. If you want to come off of Zoom, come off of mute, or if you want to type something into the chat, what do you think are the non-negotiables for any healthy relationship? Would love to hear your thoughts.
We got to trust.
Trust, absolutely.
Respect.
Respect, love it, absolutely. Oh, we've got some things coming in the chat. Honesty, clear communication, boundaries. You guys are on point. I love to hear it. These really are, you guys are hitting all of the key ones, the important things that we want to have in any healthy relationship. The reality is, and first tip to share with you all, no relationship is going to be the same to another relationship. Everybody's personality is different. How they interact with their within their relationship with their partner is going to be different. But there are core things that we should all be looking for, and those core things are great things to really start lifting up and sharing with the young people in our lives, and honoring the fact that every relationship is going to be different and nuanced, but always having that respect and that trust and the communication and those boundaries and the other things you all shared is a great thing to talk about. Along those lines, we really like to talk about the difference between healthy, unhealthy, and abusive relationships, because the reality is that is a hard thing to figure out. If we knew right away what's healthy and what's unhealthy and what's abusive, we might be able to get out of a relationship quickly. But there's a lot of gray area here. I really like to start with this image, though, to really help break down in a simple way and with a simple example the difference between these three types of relationships. In a healthy relationship, you and your partner have all of those things that were just mentioned that you all shared really well. You are communicating well, you agree about things. And if I might use the example here about finances for a second, which if there is abuse going on in a relationship, I think the statistic is like 97% of abusive relationships will include some form of financial abuse. So let's look at that as an example here. In a healthy relationship, you're communicating. If you guys aren't on the same page about how you're spending money, you're communicating about it, you're talking about it, you're coming to a resolution, you both feel great the whole time. Not to say that all of us are not perfect in our relationships. I myself am married. Our relationship is perfect, of course. Sometimes we might verge into an unhealthy space where we are not on the same page. We are not communicating. We're yelling, we're fighting, we disagree. I want to go on a luxurious vacation, and my partner wants to put that same money towards their student loans. I really want to eat out all of the time, and my partner really wants to save up and have mac and cheese every night so that you know, they can go on that vacation they want to go on, right? And we are in conflict about it, and it's not healthy conflict. It's not looking or feeling good. There's door slamming, there's name calling, we're angry, all of those things. It's unhealthy. The difference between unhealthy and abusive is that in an abusive relationship, there might be some yelling and some conflict, but the reality is one person in this relationship has the control of the finances in this example. They have the power and control in the relationship. They are making the decision. So if, partner A disagrees with what partner B wants to do with their shared money, partner A is just doing it and they're not talking to partner B, and partner B does not feel safe or respected or comfortable sharing their opinions with partner A. In the unhealthy space, you're comfortable probably. You're going back and forth, you're fighting. It's not good. But if it's abusive, it's more likely than not partner B is not able to talk about what they're feeling, what they want to do with that money, even if it's their own money that they're making themselves, because they don't have likely access to it. They don't have the ability to spend or save that money as they wish. So the abusive piece is really about power and control. And that's the literal definition. It is a systematic pattern of power and control for the sole purpose of manipulating an intimate partner. I'm not going to go through all of these types of abuse. That's a different presentation, but all of these forms of abuse could be a factor. The thing that I really like about the definition that I just shared with you all is it has nothing to do with physical abuse. We get so many people who call us who say, I've been wanting to call you, but my partner never put their hands on me. So I don't think it's actually that bad. But they control what I eat. They tell me that I can't see my friends anymore. They tell me that I need to do XYZ with them physically that I'm not comfortable with. They're not letting me honor Shabbat the way that I have since I've been growing up. They say it's a stupid way to honor Shabbat every Friday. Things like that, where somebody doesn't have to put their hands on you, but they're controlling who you're seeing, what you're doing, and how you're spending your time. That's always going to be a part of these abusive relationships. And the physical piece might play a role in it for some relationships, but it does not have to be present in order for there to be abusive dynamics in this relationship. I think especially in talking to young people about, what's okay and what's not okay in a relationship, when you feel it's age appropriate for them, it is okay to say, it doesn't have to be that somebody puts their hands on you and that, bruising and a black eye or broken bones or scratches are not okay. It's these other pieces that are not okay. So highlighting that with the young people in your lives is a really important and valuable thing. Does anybody have any thoughts about that definition of domestic abuse or questions or about the different types? And
I
again,
I actually have a question.
great.
Just making me think of young people,
Yeah.
young adults, college students, teens, whatever, anybody, actually anybody is what if it is so domestic abuse is for intimate partners. Does it ever come up where it is with like intense friendships and those type of things? And what does that
Yeah.
look like?
That's a great question. Absolutely. And I think that's a really nice way to talk to, especially the younger kids in your life about this. They're probably learning about bullying at school, in elementary school, right? In middle school, they're having conversations about bullying. How can you connect that to get them to think about all of those things that you all mentioned about what a healthy relationship should have? That should be in your friendships as well. That should be in all of the relationships in your life, and helping people, think about relationship broadly when they're younger, when they're not thinking about dating yet, is a really great way to start kind of building this foundation for them to think about their intimate partner relationships as they get older. So it can be the same, right? We've all maybe had that toxic friendship in our life, with the emotional abuse, with these other types of abuse, that can really mimic what happens in an intimate partner relationship as well.
And I would also add that like the valuable thing about this, about defining abuse as a dynamic that is rooted in power and control, is that it it doesn't create, it's not about the behavior, it's about the pattern and the relationship itself. And that can be any relationship. And I think that especially with young people, like Jordan said, that allows it to be a broader conversation. Um, and it takes it away from the specific actions or behaviors that we assume have to be present for it to be defined as abuse.
Absolutely. Other thoughts or questions about this? It's a great question.
Nothing in the chat right now.
Great. Thanks, Wendy. Okay, so let's talk about if there's young people in your life. I kind of thought about this, especially, teens or like college years, that type of thing. What are some warning signs you might notice that could be a red flag for an abusive relationship? Um, the interesting thing in thinking about some of this is actually, like, might just be the way teenagers are, right? Like, change in affect, change in their dress, change in interests. Sometimes teens go where the wind blows, right? And that's the way it is. The thing to be aware of is like what's at the core in those changes. Are they dating somebody new? And all of a sudden you're noticing some of these things, and it's really reflective of a partner who's in their life. Is their affect really changing and they're becoming more withdrawn? They're not, interacting with, they're not going to, they're missing soccer practice a lot, and they used to love soccer practice. And all of a sudden this new person's in their life and they hate soccer. Are they dressing differently? That might be somebody who's making comments about their body or talking about them wanting them to dress more modestly. So their body is only for them in the relationship, right? Or is it covering some physical, some physical bruising or scratches or something that maybe happened as well, if there is physical stuff going on. So those are some things to be aware of. Spending all their time with their new partner, again, like this happens, right? Like we adults, young people, like you're in a new relationship, it's exciting, you want to spend all your time with them. I think this is a great thing to say to a young person, is this idea of like, even if you want to and it's a healthy, loving relationship, you never want to forget about your friends. You never want to forget about, the other stuff you've always had in your life. You want to have that balance in your relationship and set those boundaries with your partner. It might feel hard if you're in a loving relationship, but always think about those things that you've always loved in your life before this person was in your life, and keep those a part of your life. On the flip side of that, when it is a more controlling relationship, often isolation is one of the key factors for somebody who's asserting abuse onto their partner. And that can look really innocent in the beginning. It can be like really positive peer pressure around, I want to spend all my time with you, skip soccer practice. I don't really like your friends. They don't really like me. Like, don't hang out with them, hang out with me. I love you so much. So it can sound really positive in the beginning and like, wow, this person is so into me. They want to spend their time with me. I'm going to do that. And so having, as best you can with this young person in your life you're thinking of, an awareness of how they're spending their time, and who they're kind of dropping to be with their partner, and bringing it up in well, I just mentioned that. Yeah. So spending all of their time with their partner. Intense mood swings centered around the partner. Again, mood swings are mood swings, right? But are these coming up? Like, is it you're bringing up their partner and maybe you're saying, can they come to dinner? I want to get to know them more. And maybe you do have that lens of, I wonder if something's going on here. I want them to come to dinner. I want to see how they interact. And this young person in your life just loses it and they get so mad at you. And it's not that it's just like frustrating for you, but something you're getting that gut feeling. Something feels uncomfortable in this situation, the way that they're reacting. They've never reacted this way before, and you don't understand why. So is there something about this partner that when you bring them up, or if they come up organically somehow in a conversation, there is some shift in how this young person is in the moment, that's making you uncomfortable. This, and I might say this several times during our conversation, trust your gut on this stuff. If something feels weird, something is probably weird. And there's not always a way to like dive into that and do something about it. But just that awareness of if you have a weird gut feeling about something, there might be something going on.
Jordan, we have a question that came up in the
Great.
chat. It says, would you generalize the topic to a young adult and say, for example, you can't treat your male friend in a rude way, just like you won't be able to treat a wife like that?
Mm. Yeah, I think, part of this is, we're providing some general thoughts about ways you can have these conversations and approach the young people in your life. Every person that you're talking to about this stuff is going to be a little bit different. Like you could say like, you know, you can't treat your friend that way. It could also be, I noticed how they're treating you. That doesn't feel so good in that friendship, right? Could you imagine how that might feel in a marriage? Like, do you want to get married one day? Wouldn't that feel so weird if you're living with this person and they're treating you this way? So I think there are ways that you can generalize if that feels comfortable with the young person you're thinking about. And for some young people, I think they don't want to talk about getting married with their parents or whoever, when they're younger. And some, maybe that is a conversation you have. And I think it's a great conversation to have. It's a great question. So let's talk about along the lines of that question and what I was just sharing. Here are some ways to think about bringing up healthy conversations with the young people in your life, generally. Think of the best time of place. Or is this young person loves to wake up at 6 a.m. and go on a walk? Go on a walk with them. Do they like peak at lunchtime? Go to lunch with them. I know a lot of people love having difficult conversations or more awkward conversations with young people in their lives in the car, where they're captive and they can't just jump out of the car, right? So think about the best time of place if you really do want to start these conversations with them just more broadly. I encourage you as much as possible to share your own experiences. Look, we all come from having adults in our life and we think of them as, this is my parent and that's the only lens. Imagine the value if a parent, when you were a teenager, told them about a roommate they had in college and how you were worried about their relationship and you didn't know what to do about it. And sharing that example with them at, human to human level and saying, it was so hard for me and I wish I knew I could have called a helpline and just asked somebody what was going on, or I wish I knew the best way to approach my friend, or I wish I could have talked to my parent about it, but I didn't feel comfortable. By the way, you can always come to me, right? So sharing your own experiences can be such a powerful thing. Sharing your values, especially like we talked about to start this all off, sharing what a healthy relationship looks like at its core is a great thing. And sharing your own experiences with that too can be a really beautiful thing. How those values show up in your own relationships, including in your friendships, in your own intimate partner relationship, if you have one, and if you don't, or if you have really core friend groups, what do those values look like in your friendships? I think can be a great thing. Examples in the media is such a great way to talk about this. I think especially with younger people, Disney being a great example of being able to point out like what a fun movie, those classic Disney movies, where it is the knight in shining armor. But you can say this movie was so fun to your 6-year-old, but like, would it actually feel good if somebody, you know, rescued you, or would you want to rescue yourself? And I know Disney, I think, I don't know, I haven't watched a lot of the recent movies, but I think they're getting better about talking about these things and empowering every individual in the movies. But I think these old examples of movies, I think a lot about The Notebook, which is a classic. I just checked in with young people recently. They know and still like that movie. But this idea of like the huge grand gesture and, you know, threatening, I don't know if you've seen the movie or not, but like the main character is on a Ferris wheel on a date, and the guy who wants to, this other guy wants to go on a date with her, and he grabs the Ferris wheel, goes to the top. He's like, I'm going to let go unless you say you're going to go on a date with me. And it's like the most romantic thing ever. And you can stop for a minute and say to your kid, if you're watching something like that, I don't know if that would actually feel good in real life. What do you think? That seems kind of crazy to me. You know, there's some great clips of like on the internet of like classic scenes like that where they change the music. And it's like, depending on the music, it's actually really sweet or really creepy. Things like that are really, really great. Um, Curiosity over criticism is a huge tip. You know, offering, being open-minded, being open-ended with questions and what you're coming to them with, and asking questions versus like, you know, saying, I saw this person do this thing and ew, how could you? Versus how did it feel when you saw this happen within your friend group or something is a very different approach. And lead by example. I think, you know, we get the question a lot about like, okay, as a parent, I want to track my kid on their phone. Is that, but I don't want them to feel like they have to do that in their relationship. What a great way to talk about healthy boundaries and communication with your child. If you want to track their phone, talk about why you want to track their phone. Ask them if they feel okay now that you've explained why you want to track their phone, and talk about how if you're ever in a relationship or you have a friendship where somebody wants you to share, like share location, and you're not comfortable with that, they should trust their gut on that, right? So I think the phone stuff, the tech stuff is a really great example. It's something that's super normalized right now, especially with young people, about location sharing and things like that. But you can have that conversation and talk about, you know, the boundaries you have and the relationship you have with these young people in your lives, why you feel like it's important. And have a conversation with them about, you know, how they might think about this in each of their own relationships. The
Yeah.
last thing I
I
have
got
on
one,
here.
I got one more question.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I'm wondering if you are having a conversation with a young person about relationships and they talk about how some of these things, like the Ferris wheel example, are actually okay and justify it. How would you navigate that?
I think that that's okay, right? Like they're not in that situation right then. It's about saying, just be open-minded to the fact that if it happens to you, make sure you're listening to yourself and not thinking about this movie. You know, encourage them to be open-minded and to trust their gut. That's a great time to say trust their gut. Like, awesome, everybody's different. Sometimes that
Mhm.
could be really romantic. How does it feel to you in the moment? Always check in with yourself in the moment.
And I would also add, like, the Ferris wheel example is a great one with Jordan, the point that Jordan was making of like the videos where they like change the music. Oh my, I'm so sorry, my cat keeps trying to escape. Um um but where they'll change the music, like a great conversation could be like, well, what if you know, yeah, it was really romantic, that scene, because she wanted him to do that, right? But what if she didn't want him to do that? How would it have felt in that moment for her, or for if you were her and you didn't like that person and they were making you feel like you couldn't say no? Those kinds of questions are really valuable. It doesn't have to be a yes or no answer. It can just be, this is a question to explore.
Great.
And we had one more question here.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on should you tell your children about past romantic relationships with with people other than your parents?
That's up to you and your relationship with your child and your comfort level. I think if there is a story that you really want to share with them about a past relationship you've been in and you're not comfortable, you can always say, I have a friend who was in this relationship. And that's a good way to approach it if you're not comfortable doing that. Or if you think the young person won't receive it well, if it is about a past relationship you had. I think some young people would be like really into that story, and some young people would not be at all. So you have to know about the person you're talking to. And I think the other thing related to that is I really encourage you, if you're thinking about the young people in a young person in your life, it is important to acknowledge that you might not be the person that they would turn to, but they're really close with their Uncle Peter. It's okay to say to them, I am always here for you if you're thinking about a relationship, if you're worried about a relationship, yours or a friend's. I want to be there for you. I love you. I care for you. And who I know you're close to Uncle Peter. You can always go to Uncle Peter too. You know that, right? Like Uncle Peter cares as much as I do, and that's okay. And then talk to Uncle Peter about that. Like let Uncle Peter know, by the way, we had this conversation, and maybe talk to Uncle Peter first to make sure they're comfortable with it. But really recognize that you might not be the person you want to make sure they know you could be, but be realistic about that also. And think about, the goal is to make sure this young person feels as safe as possible, as in the safest relationships. Hopefully it's you that they turn to if you're opening these conversations up, but if it's not, who is the person they could turn to? Okay, so another question for you all. If you were concerned about this young person's relationship, how might you think about approaching them? And we've talked about some of this already, right?
Great question. My gut would be just to open up the conversation on, how's it going and how does it feel to be in this relationship? More
Yeah.
open-minded that way.
Beautiful. That's really great. That's a really great start, Wendy. And I think you know, we've all been and know young people, they might not respond to that at all, like fine and go upstairs, right? Um, Part of the goal, if you are concerned, is being consistent in your care, right? So if you continue and find that balance again, like not in a way that they're going to get frustrated, but if every couple of days you say, are you still with that person? That's really great. How is it going? And if you think of different ways to say it or to ask it or to bring up the relationship in a really approachable and open-ended way, like you shared, Wendy, that consistency can be really valuable because you never know when they're going to respond in a different way. You never know when they're going to give a little bit more. And sometimes we say this, we do a lot of kind of more broadly on this topic, like how to support a friend in an abusive relationship. And that consistency, they might never say anything to you, but you're getting their wheels turning. Boy, I've been in relationships before, but my parent or whoever it is has never asked me so many times what's going on, and something does feel weird. Maybe they're picking up on it. And maybe they're the type of kid that's never going to say anything to you, but they're thinking about it. You're getting those wheels turning, and sometimes that is the best you can do.
And I think that you can also say, like, hey, I noticed that I always try to use like a non-gender name, like Jessie was like really concerned about you hanging out with your friends after soccer practice today, or the other day. Like, was he like, what was he concerned about, or like how did that feel that he was so that they were so concerned about this? You can use instances of what you're noticing and say, and not approaching it as like this is a bad or a good thing, but just like, hey, how did that feel for you that your partner was so concerned, or that they were saying this to you, or that they text you all day? Those are great questions to ask.
Yeah. Yeah, we talk a lot about sharing how we feel versus how we assume or expect the other person to feel, right? Like, ooh, I felt a little, I think the other example that comes up a lot is like you go to dinner with somebody and their partner orders for them. And you can say afterwards, that's never happened before. I've never seen anybody order for you before. How does that feel to you? And again, they might not say, yeah, that feels really weird in my relationship, something is off. But you're pointing something out that maybe they already were starting to think about a little bit. You're acknowledging something that can be really valuable for them to hear out loud. So having that kind of softer approach, and I like some of this is really hard when we're talking about caring for younger people in our lives because it's hard to not want to say like get out of this relationship, something seems really bad, but oftentimes that will really shut somebody down even further. So it's really important to check yourself and make sure you're not kind of putting too much pressure on them to talk about the relationship or to admit something to you, because if they're not ready, they're certainly going to be further pushed away if you continue to try to kind of get in there and ask a lot of questions and talk about things too much. So it's definitely a delicate balance. And again, by the way, like the same if you're supporting a friend who's in an abusive relationship. If you push too hard or if you say the wrong thing, the other thing is talking about behaviors, like Zoe said, and not the person, because they care about the person. They're in a relationship with the person. So if we say, the person sucks, which we might say to a friend and not the young person in our life, but whatever iteration of that, they're not going to want to talk to you about that person ever again because they think you think they suck. Right. So it's important to think about your language, think about the behaviors and not the person, and not labeling that person as anything. The other thing
And
to consider is tap. Oh, sorry. Somebody was going to say something.
oh no, I was just gonna add, Jordan.
Yeah.
One of the main things that we know is that abuse thrives in isolation. Abuse is at its most powerful when victims are isolated and unable to connect to people that care about them. So even in those moments where it feels maybe very difficult to not come in with a judgment, the more that you can kind of maintain a sense of it's hard to say neutrality because it's not neutral about the behavior, but neutrality about their choices, and that you're there to support them through what they're doing. It feels counterintuitive in the moment, but that's how you're able to maintain it's important to value and maintain the relationship over perhaps supporting what they're doing in that moment.
Zoe, you talking about that. I am absolutely not a therapist. Our therapists do incredible work, and their job, it's kind of similar to the advice we do give for somebody who's trying to support someone else in an abusive relationship. Their job as a therapist is not to say, okay, you're in this abusive relationship, here's how we're going to get you out. Their job is to just help this person kind of get their power back, empower them a little bit more, give them the confidence back that has been chipped away in this relationship. It is not about telling them what to do. If we tell, as their therapist or as a friend or loved one, if we tell this person, you need to get out, or we tell them, why haven't you done this, or have all of these things, if we tell them what they should do, and we're, by the way, coming from a place of love, that's what's so hard about it, we tell them what to do, that's what they're getting all of the time from this person who's controlling them, right? So we're mimicking the behaviors of the person that they're in this very complicated, difficult relationship with, and they're not going to want to hear that from us. So as much as we can be open and trustworthy and caring for this person and create a safe space for them if and when they want to turn to us, that's really the goal if we know somebody's in an abusive relationship. And PS, that's, I think, that's why I don't want to be a therapist, because I don't know how you do it, Zoe. It's incredible the work that they do, because, you know, a lot of these journeys take a very similar path, and it's easy to see how these relationships evolve. And it's not our therapist's job to tell them that. It's our therapist's job to be there as a safe space for them to process and to gain their voice back and make decisions for themselves. So in a world in which a young person does confide in you, right along these lines, the open-ended questions can continue. Continue, again, even when they confide in us, we're not going to say, oh, you need to do XYZ right now. You need to break up with them. It's asking them what they want to do and empowering them to say, if they don't want to do anything right now, that's okay. Continuing to be that safe space for them is the best thing you can do. You want to avoid prying. You don't want to say like, okay, that incident happened. Well, what was in the lead up to that incident? What else went on? Give me the details. Tell me all of the things. You want to just hear whatever they have to say, validate what they're saying. I think also like telling them that you believe them is a huge piece to this too, because I think especially if somebody gets really deep in these relationships, it's really hard for them to feel like they'll be believed. And just ask them like, what can I do to support you? Just being there for them. This is kind of the overarching thing, as you can tell. I would say too, this is a really complicated and difficult thing. SHALVA is one resource. There are surely others as well, where if you are in this space and you don't know how to support someone, whether they've confided in you or not, you can call our helpline and get some advice over the phone about how to be there for them, and also some validation for yourself, right? Like as somebody supporting someone in an abusive relationship, it's really challenging and it's really hard to feel like you're doing enough. But just being that non-judgmental space is often enough. But sometimes you need to hear that in the moment. So we are there for that if you ever have questions about a relationship. Overall, before, during, after, dating, in a relationship, all of these things, telling young people that they're worthy, loved, and lovable is such a beautiful and powerful thing. How they are treated is not a reflection of who they are. So many people who are survivors blame themselves, think it's their fault, and that's just absolutely not the case. And reminding them that there are always options. You're in this relationship, you're, of a certain age, you feel like you've dated so much and you don't know, what to do next and what that looks like. There are always options. And lastly, trusting your gut is such a valuable thing for you, for them, for anybody, anywhere. All of this, like I think especially when I see they're worthy, loved, and lovable, that's not exactly what you're going to tell every young person in your life, because that's a phrase that many might not receive well, just because of their personality and who they are, and that sounds cheesy or whatever. Think of the right language to use with this young person in your life, in order for them to feel that sentiment. With that, I want to mention too, like, I hope this has come across in what we've shared, but I want to really emphasize that this is a conversation for all genders. Anybody can be a survivor. Anybody can be a perpetrator of abuse. We want everybody to feel like they know what a healthy relationship is. So don't limit this to, I want the young woman in my life to feel protected, and safe, and like, she has value and options in her relationship. We should be giving that same exact message to young boys as well. So I encourage you to think broadly about that, and this whole conversation. I think that was my last slide. Yeah. Okay. That is what we have to share with you all. I would love to open it up for questions or thoughts. I know that's a lot of information. If you take one thing away, I would say trust your gut and call a resource if you have questions about this, because I know we did just share a lot of information.
Thank you so much. I did get just one private message here.
Yeah.
If their young person is spending a ton of time with a new relationship, a college student, and that is the only thing that concerns them because they're not branching out to make friends, they're a college student, is that a concern? or just ride the wave?
Zoe, do you want to take that?
Yeah, sorry. So the question is if they're a college student and they're spending all their time in this new relationship. Um, I think these are the questions where when we talk about abuse, we always say it's a spectrum, like that there are plenty of relationships where you're like, I don't know, there are signs there, but there aren't, but maybe there aren't all of the signs, or you can't check off every part of the list. I think that it's worthwhile to look at what are the other circumstances in place? Is this somebody who just started college and hasn't really made friends yet, and this is the first kind of social relationship that they have? Is it somebody who dated a lot in high school or didn't date at all in high school? Thinking about the context that you're in. But my general rule is that people, I mean, and this is just me, like your life should be big in the sense that you should have relationships that are fulfilling more than just one romantic relationship. And if your primary social interaction is with a partner, that can make things start to feel very small. So I always say it's worthwhile to help them to find more things, not even because the relationship necessarily is abusive. It could be a great relationship, but no one can be everything for everyone or for their partner. So even exploring it from a perspective of like, what are things that you are interested in that they aren't, that maybe you could find connections outside of them for. I think that's a great way of approaching it.
Thank you.
I have
And
a
that's it.
question. I'm not
Oh,
sure.
good. Thank you. Go ahead.
So I was helping, let's just say family member. Um, and, and we were thinking that there was some abuse going on, more like emotional, financial, stuff like that. And then things got heated up. I came, flew down there and try to like, help be the middle person before they got therapy or whatever. They ended up stopping therapy. I'm not sure, but my question is, I try to call just to see how she's doing and trying to be there for her and see if she would talk to me. And I don't know how to say like, hey, how's you and your husband? Like, how's he treating you? It's not kind of like how you start. I want her to. I kind of told them at some point it would be best for him to. They need to grow by themselves to find their own, to be strong people, because they're not, and then they're doing this all with their kids and fighting in front of the kids and whatever. And I did suggest for them to separate, for him to be able to go at his work, take care of what he needs to do, not be far from the kids and help with that. But she should be able to become a person and find herself and love herself for the first time. So maybe I shouldn't have said that. I happen to know the couple very well. And they didn't listen, and they happened to. So now from then on, I haven't heard anything what's going on. All I heard is no more therapists. It didn't work for her. I don't know about his situation because I can't ask him straight up, hey, you going to therapy? Like, so I'm just waiting for something big to happen, which is not good. Or I'm waiting to have some clues, or I'm just talking to her. I'm waiting for her to open up. But things, they don't necessarily look, I can't tell on a computer how they're looking. So I don't know how you would approach this. If I suggest, just calling you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely recommend. Where you said that they were in Florida,
Yeah.
so I
I
mean,
don't think I said that, but it's true. They're in Florida.
yeah, I do have to clarify that we are only able to serve clients in Illinois, and that's a licensing thing. So I just
Do they
always
have one in Florida?
there are lots of organizations that we can connect them to if they call. But I always have to give that caveat.
Yeah.
And this is where I have to give the answer that I hate to give, and it's going to be really unsatisfying, and I apologize in advance for it, which is that if she's not ready to make a change, or if she doesn't want to make a change, it's not going to happen. And the best thing that you can do is to continue to make yourself available to her and continue to remind her and talk about the fact that whatever she says to you, whatever she tells you, you're going to listen to without judgment and without shame. Because there's a lot of shame associated with this, right? To admit that your relationship is unhealthy or that you are being hurt by your partner, it can feel very very scary to tell other people. So your presence and your constant reassurance that you're going to listen and you're going to be available to her is the most important thing that you can do. And this is where, as a friend, and I say this also from as a therapist where I'm talking to clients regularly, it can feel really painful and really frustrating to see somebody that you care about who is making choices that you disagree with or that you think are hurting them. But we have to meet people where they are. And the best thing that you can do is just to continue to remind her of your support. And definitely, I would say if she's interested in reaching out to organizations to do that. And then also remind her that she doesn't have to feel like relationships shouldn't feel bad, right? They shouldn't feel unhealthy. You shouldn't feel unsafe in your home. All of those are really important.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know what you think about this too, Zoe. By the way, it sounds like you are doing all the right things, like Zoe
Yeah.
said. So just to validate
Thank you.
that. Sometimes I think well, tell me what you think. Like talking about your own relationship, like, oh, we got into this argument, XYZ, like very casually, to almost say like in a subtle way, my relationship isn't perfect, but then also to exemplify like, and then we ended up doing this thing. Like it also
Yeah, I do
resolved
that. Yeah, I definitely do that.
Awesome. I think that's
Yeah.
helpful for somebody to hear, like there is that model of healthy conflict, of healthy
Yeah. And she
resolution.
came to my house, so she saw how we deal with, conflict and kids and life. And
Yeah.
she was blown away. I mean, she's like, whoa, is this what normal is? And I felt bad that she had to say that, but just kept my mouth shut and kept going. And maybe I tried a little harder to be extra good to everybody, just making sure that I'm really nailing it so she can see how to be. So yeah, I did, yeah, definitely try that.
You're
And
doing
try to get
great.
her on the video. Anytime I could get her on the video and she could see real life and how chaos is normal, but then there's a way to react. Or relationship, let's say, we disagree, but this is how you would talk to each other, or this is how it should, you know, we're close enough for that. Like I try to get the video on or whatever. So that's kind of what I do.
I mean, it sounds like you're doing all of the right things.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes me feel better. Just keep
You're
praying.
living in that really difficult space, whether it's a young person or a friend or a family member, like it's just, we do trainings with teachers, and when we talk about this and thinking about their parents, it's like, it's not like child abuse because there's no mandated reporting unless there's imminent danger and we call 911.
Right.
There is no mandated reporting for this because we're talking about, competent adult individuals who are in an intimate relationship. And
Yeah.
um
And a lot of it
it
she
makes it really
doesn't see
complicated.
because she doesn't view herself in such a high light, so
Absolutely.
we have to,
Very
I have to
common.
just keep saying, you are wonderful, you're awesome. Look at what you're doing today. Look what you did or whatever. Just make herself feel good. That's the beginning before she can,
Right. Feeling like
be
she's like she
worth
deserves to
anything.
feel
Loved
loved
or
in her
treated
relationship.
well or anything. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of stuff that she has to figure out. And she just decided her therapist wasn't good. I'm like, that's okay. There are other therapists. That's okay. you know. So I try to, keep encouraging that. I was like, and I explain how it feels, to get everything off your chest, and the person doesn't even know you. You just say what you want, and I just, yeah. So that's another thing. Um, yeah, a lot of those things try to do. Just, yeah, I'm kind of like wondering. It's
Yeah.
been since I went down there a year, or maybe a little bit less. And I'm just like, okay, now what? Like, what's happening?
Right. It's really
Like,
hard. It's really hard, but you're doing really great. That's the reality. Yeah.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
Okay.
thank you for sharing that and talking that through. And thank you to Jordan and Zoe for all that you do. And we are grateful. We will share a recording of this topic minus the Q&A at the end for anyone who needs it. And it will be on our YouTube channel. And finally, our next one is in about a month. It's on December. Actually, I think it's December. Oh, it's December 12th. And this one, our next one is, you'll get information about it, is about a new type of therapy that people are using. In this case, it's called in motion therapy, working with young people while being interactive and playing sports and doing art and different types of mediums. And we're partnering with True Mind and Body, a great practice here in the Chicagoland, in the northern suburbs. So stay tuned for that. And Jordan and Zoe, thank you. Thank you for all that you do and your compassion. And this is a complicated and challenging topic.
Thank you so much. It was a great opportunity. It was nice to
Yeah.
meet you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.